AIWC, Alberta Institute for Wildlife Conservation, and we're going to be doing something a little bit different today, where we're going to be asking you, the viewers at home, some questions all to do with Alberta's wildlife and some trivia there. So I'm going to introduce our guest for today as Katrina. Hello, Katrina.
Hello.
So Katrina works at AIWC, and I'll let you introduce yourself. What do you do there?
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. Thank you, Toby. So yes, as said, my name is Katrina Terrill, and my official title at AIWC is the Community Engagement Manager. So what essentially that means is I work with all the volunteers and I do all the training for people. And then I also do presentations just like this. So I go into schools. Well, pre-COVID, I went into schools, and now I do all of these lovely web shows. And during this time as well, it's actually our busiest time of the year. So 3 days a week, I'm in our wildlife hospital and actually helping with some of the animal care too. So yeah, very familiar with all of our lovely patients at the moment.
Oh, that is amazing. So what does a day look like in the animal hospital for you guys?
Yeah, well, it starts very early. So typically we have somebody coming on site to the hospital around 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning. And the reason that has to happen is because our baby birds are up with the sun. So we need to get there as soon as possible and start our daily feedings. And we are a small team, so we only have 6 full-time staff members, but we do have some amazing volunteers as well that come out and help us out. And so we all divide and conquer. We need to, with 170 patients currently at the hospital. Yeah, busy, very busy. So each person will take a specific section of the hospital. What I'm usually on is baby bird duty. So every 15 minutes, my timers go off and I have to go in and I have to feed our baby birds. And some of our baby birds are eating solid food, which is great. So they get things like blueberries and mealworms and even a little bit of dog kibble. They really like that for some of the more carnivorous birds, robins especially. And then some of our baby birds are still on a liquid diet. So we have special liquid diets prepared that have the same nutrition that their parents would be giving them in the wild. So yeah, feeding through syringes and things like that.
Sounds like a very busy but rewarding job. You get to see a little
very much so, yeah. Other days I work with the baby skunks, and that's a whole different kind of ball game. So occupational hazards, you don't smell very good at the end of the day, but that's fine.
Oh, that's awesome. So you mentioned that it's a busy time of year for you at the moment. Why is that? Why is it busy at the moment?
Well, it's baby season. Most of the patients that we do get over the course of a year are often babies. And that's because, unfortunately, that's the most vulnerable time of their lives for a lot of wild animals. Baby animals often are very helpless. They really rely on their parents. And if something happens to their parents, so say their mom gets hit by a car or something like that, then the babies are really on their own. So we get often asked to help out with some of these orphaned babies. And in any given year, we could have upwards of 1,000 baby animals coming through in just 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're a foster mum to a lot of babies.
Lots of babies. Yes. Many, many, many children.
Oh, that's awesome. So we're going to jump into a little kind of question round here. We're going to start off with some pictures, and viewers at home, do feel free to post all your questions, comments, and answers in our comment sections for either Facebook or YouTube or wherever you may be viewing from today. So they'll come through live to me, and I can give out the odd shout out as well. So I'm just going to start us off with, we'll start with something easy here. Here we go. So actually, this isn't very easy.
Oh, you are not giving them an easy one to start with.
No, straight into it. So we've got here a picture. It looks like the same kind of colors as everything else. In the top left, there might be something there. So viewers at home, what do you think this animal is? It is a native species to Alberta. All of these are, so that's a clue. So it's very well camouflaged. Now, Katrina, why do animals need to be camouflaged, especially as babies?
Absolutely. A lot of animals have camouflage to help them hide from predators. And just to give you guys a hint, these animals in particular really are excellent hiders because their moms actually leave them alone on purpose. So their camouflage is so good that their best defense is to just stay hidden in the grass, not moving at all, and mom will actually leave the area to lead a scent trail away from the babies.
Oh, we've got a few guesses here. We've got some quick-witted viewers. We've got Silver Raven, says baby hare. Melanie says bunnies. Um, so are they correct?
You know what? They absolutely are. You guys got it for sure. These are baby jackrabbits.
Oh, they are so sweet.
They are very cute. We get a lot of these guys coming in. Often right now, we're actually having a lot of baby rabbits coming in because they've been attacked by people's cats.
Ooh.
So people letting their cats outside. We do not want to see that because we get a lot of cats bringing home a very injured baby jackrabbit that we have to then look after at the hospital.
Oh, poor little guys. So this is when they're a baby. Do they have a specific name of their babies, or are they just baby rabbits?
We generally call them baby rabbits. Yeah.
Okay.
You could call them an infant. Technically, the term is leveret, for a baby hare.
Good.
But not everybody knows that. So if you call them a baby rabbit, we'll fully understand what you mean.
Great. And then when they grow up a little bit, I think I've seen them around the city. They look a little bit like this. Now it looks very different to this little one. What's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. So during the fall time, of course, you might have seen this happening around the city. Instead of growing brown fur, the undercoat for these jackrabbits actually comes in white. And that's a fantastic adaptation for them because then, of course, they blend in with all the snow that we've got. Come springtime, they're growing in their spring coat, and their spring coat does not come in white. It then comes in brown as well. So they are switching out their coats of fur and the colors of their coats of fur every season so that they are always camouflaged perfectly.
Oh, that is an amazing adaptation, especially for Calgary, because as you said, half the year snow, well, a little bit more than half the year, unfortunately. And then you're kind of brown, so they blend in and change the environments. That's perfect. I got a message here from Amna saying this year a robin laid eggs in their hanging basket. Experience for the kids.
Very cool.
Yeah. What color are robin eggs?
Robin eggs are bright blue, which is very exciting to see. They're always one of my favorites to spot. But yeah, it's great that you've got them so close. That's a really exciting experience to see the babies hatch and grow and how fast they grow as well.
Right on. Okay, we're going to move along here to our next guest. It was kind of good segue into a bird. It looks like a bird. I mean, it's got birdy features. So what can you tell us about this bird without giving it away?
Well, as you can probably tell by this picture, this bird is pretty renowned for being a little grumpy. And yes, this is a smaller version of the adult. So this is a baby bird. You may have seen these around, although they tend to come out more at nighttime than they do during the day. Yeah, and right now he's covered in a very lovely fluffy down. And that's because these babies are actually one of the earliest to hatch. So these eggs are laid in February, and then they tend to hatch in March when there's still snow on the ground. So these babies need all of that down to actually keep them warm, even though their parents do also sit on them all day long to keep them warm. So be happy you don't have to have your parents sit on you, guys. That is not fun when the sun sets.
So we've got a few messages coming in saying it looks like a raptor, maybe a peregrine falcon. We've got Silver Raven again thinks baby barn owl. Close. I'm going to play you another clue here. There we go. That might give it away a little bit more and narrow it down. So who might this one be?
Oh, very good.
Okay, let's see. Baby Great Gray. Ooh, it looks like this one may have stumped a few people. So let's reveal it. Ta-da!
Ta-da!
The Great Horned Owl. So what can you tell us about the Great Horned Owl? It's a provincial bird.
It is absolutely our provincial bird, and we have a lot of them in Alberta, which is great. As you might have heard, that sound that you played is the Great Horned Owl call, and they sound very, very similar to a barking dog. So a lot of people do think that they've just got noisy dogs in their neighborhood, when in fact you might actually have an owl. So the way you can tell them apart is the owl always makes the same pattern of call over and over again. It's always the hoo, 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 hoo noise. So keep an eye out for that pattern. Yes, I'm very good at imitating owls. I do it all the time. It's great.
So do you get baby owls in the
Absolutely. Yeah. That picture that we actually showed just previously, that baby owl was one of this year's babies that we got. And this guy had to come in, unfortunately, because he had been poisoned. Not on purpose. No one was trying to hurt the baby. But what happened is that mom and dad were hunting in an area, we think, where somebody was using a rodent poison to get rid of mice or gophers in the area. And unfortunately, when owls eat mice that have been poisoned, they also become poisoned by that and can get extremely ill. So this guy had to come into the hospital, and we had to do a full month of medications for him. So he was getting needles 4 times a day to help get that poison out of his system. And believe me, he was not thrilled about this. He was extremely grumpy about the whole situation. But luckily, we actually were able to get that poison out of his body and then place him in a different area with a foster great horned owl family. So great horned owls will take in 1 or 2 extra chicks if we are able to find ones that are the same age.
That's lovely. And what would you feed them normally?
Well, at the hospital, we do try and feed the same kind of food that animals would normally be eating. So for these guys, they're getting mice, they get some quail, other kinds of meat if we do need to feed them something that's a little easier for them to digest at first. But for the most part, of course, nothing alive. So they're not getting to chase anything, and usually they can't at the hospital anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the, because they're hunters, as you said there. Let's talk about what makes them one of the best hunters, maybe, because when you think of hunters and predatory animals, owls don't usually come up as like the forefront. But I've heard they're pretty good at what they do.
They are really fantastic at what they do, and partly it's because of their eyesight. Their eyesight is fantastic. It's way better than ours, of course. And then their hearing is also extremely excellent. Their hearing is so good, they can actually hear a mouse running underneath about 3 feet of snow and know exactly where it is, and will dive in without even seeing it to grab the mouse and fly away. And that's because their ears are what we call asymmetrical. So they're lopsided. They have one ear kind of up here and one ear a little bit down here. Yeah. So that really helps with triangulating their prey. They can not only hear what direction something's coming from, but also how high up it is or how low down it is. So that's why having those lopsided ears is just fantastic for these guys.
Do this. That is incredible. Alicia here says eyes. So is there anything special about their eyes? And I think you've got something to show us as well.
Oh, I do have something to show you. But as you can see, even from this picture, their eyes are enormous. And when you look at the skull of a great horned owl, it's even more pronounced, because most of what you see when you look at a great horned owl, just their feathers everywhere. But I do have a copy of a great horned owl skull. So this is a plastic copy, but it's exactly accurate. And this is what they look like when you're looking at them head on. So you can see right up here, they've got these lovely bony rings just around where their eyes are. So that keeps their eyes fixed in place. And it means they have what we call binocular vision. So if you can imagine, it's like holding a pair of binoculars up to your eyes. And that means that you're really focusing on whatever is in your field of vision. Unfortunately for the owls, it means they cannot move their eyeballs either. So we can move our eyes from side to side and up and down. Maybe if your parents are being a little annoying, you can move them all the way around. But owls can't do that. So instead of having to move their eyes, they're actually turning their entire heads. And that's why you often see owls doing that really incredible, huge turning of the head. Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
So there's our skull from the side as well. And you can see how long their faces are too.
It's actually surprisingly small. When I think of a great horned owl, I think of these big, huge owls.
Yeah.
But this skull, is it a baby's or is that like an adult skull?
That is an adult skull.
Wow.
So for the most part, when you're looking at an owl, most of what you're seeing is feathers. A great horned owl is one of the heaviest owls that we have in Alberta, and they top out right at about 2 kilograms for the big females. That's it. Wow. Yeah, they're really just mostly feathers. So they weigh about, a good lunchbox or so.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look at what we've got for our viewers next. Oh, so there is something here. This is actually, I'll give it a couple of seconds because
this took me a few seconds to get to, actually. Oh my gosh.
To see what this is.
Yeah.
And I think it's what we were talking about earlier, that camouflage there. So I'm guessing birds need to camouflage as well, and not just to hide from predators, but for the owls here, because they are predators, to kind of sneak up on their prey, maybe.
Well, to some extent, absolutely. And that's also why owls fly so silently, is to sneak up on their prey. This guy, though, he's very small, so he could not only be a predator, but he also may be prey for some larger birds as well. So the camouflage is serving a dual purpose for him, for sure.
Just got a message from Sarah. Hello, Sarah. She says there's an owl in there, and there is an owl right in the center there. I don't know what species that is. Do you have an idea, Katrina?
Yeah, that looks to me like it's a pygmy owl, actually. So very tiny. We don't just have the big owls like great horned owls or great grays here. Pygmy owls top out about this tall.
Oh, that is so sweet.
Very, very tiny. Same attitude as a bigger owl, though, of course. They're very cranky about the whole situation when they have to come into the hospital.
Oh. So I hear that you're somewhat of an expert with endangered animals. Are there any endangered owls here in Alberta?
So actually, all of the owls in Alberta are protected species. So they are all protected provincially, which is fantastic. That means that there is no hunting allowed of any of these species. And even if you do find an owl that has passed away, or you find some feathers, it's usually a good idea to actually call Fish and Wildlife and report that to them, because there is a whole big research project going on with Fish and Wildlife on these species. And there's even a provincial feather bank where they are keeping feathers of certain animals. And that way, if we need to do a feather transplant, which is called imping, so we can imp feathers back on to animals that have lost some of them.
No way.
We actually contact the database, and they're going to be able to send us feathers that will match this animal perfectly.
That is incredible. So it's like a kind of a hair transplant kind of thing.
Absolutely. The one big endangered bird of prey that we do have here in Alberta, or I should say small bird of prey, is our burrowing owl, though. So burrowing owls are very endangered in Alberta. They're actually federally protected as well because they're so endangered. We have less than 500 of them here in Alberta. So very rare species. They're only really in the grasslands area. And the reason that they are so endangered is unfortunately because of habitat destruction. So grasslands, of course, very prime areas for farming as well. We need to grow food. We need to make sure we have enough to feed everyone. But it's also making it hard for the burrowing owls to find good nesting spaces too.
So where did they nest, Katrina? Is it their name kind of suggests that they burrow? Is that right?
Yeah, well, they don't make their own burrows. They do steal them though. So they really like old badger burrows and then prairie dog burrows as well. They're big fans of. Of course, we don't really have prairie dogs here in Alberta. We don't have very many of them left because they were, of course, considered a big pest. And so there's not too many of them around. But in places like Saskatchewan, if you wanted to go and check these guys out, you can go to Grasslands National Park, where they have huge prairie dog towns, sometimes hundreds of prairie dogs in a single area. And every prairie dog town usually has a couple burrowing owls that have moved in and are intimidating everyone in the neighborhood.
Very sweet. They're tiny as well, aren't they? They're
very small as well. Little bigger than the pygmy owl, but not by much. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think we're going to move on to our next.
Yes, let's do it.
I think people are going to get pretty quickly here.
I hope so. You never know, though. This is, another young one that you might not have seen in person before, although you may have seen the adults.
Yeah. And when are these typically born? Is it springtime as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Usually they're born kind of beginning of June, end of May. And we do actually have 2 of these at our hospital right now.
Oh, I've got a few answers coming in. Lindsay's just here to say hello. Hello, Lindsay.
Hello, Lindsay.
Silver Raven says a moose. Alicia also says a moose. Melanie is being a little silly over here, and she said a flamingo.
Well, it's the funniest looking flamingo I've ever seen.
Flamingo, but I don't know. I've been wrong before. We've got Meisha. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Says a moose. Amanda, moose. Lindsay says Sammy. Could be Sammy the moose. And Amanda, before we give the answer away, Amanda's gone back to the last one there. What is the biggest recorded owl in the world? Do you know?
Oh, well, it depends on your definition of big. So the tallest owl in the world actually lives here. It's the great gray owl, and they can get up to about 75 to 79 centimeters tall. So Yeah, almost, yeah, you're getting close to a meter tall in that respect. But they're very light. Again, it's just they have extremely long legs and they're trying to trick you into thinking they're bigger than they are. Believe the heaviest owl that's been recorded is the Eurasian eagle owl. Ooh. So obviously Eurasia, don't get them here. But yeah, they're about 2.5 kilograms, I think that they top out at. So just a little bit bigger than our great horned owl.
Good, great question there. Okay, I'm going to play a sound for you guys just to see.
Yep.
That's definitely not a flamingo there.
No.
So that sound, I wouldn't probably match the sound to what I think it is. It kind of, I don't know, it sounds like a big bear or something. But yeah, we've got, Kayla says a moose. I think everyone's pretty unanimous here.
Excellent.
So let's have a look. There they are. Wow.
Well done, everyone. Excellent.
Oh, it's got some clever listeners here today. So these moose, there's two here. Mooses.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Meese.
Moose.
Why is that?
It's actually, this is super random, but it's because of the origin of the word. So moose is actually a First Nations term. And that's why it doesn't have the same kind of plurals as something like a goose does, which is more European in origin.
So it's not a meese.
There you go. No meese, just moose.
So the two moose in the picture here, there's a very big difference.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, so the biggest difference here is because, of course, one is male and one is female. The female moose do not grow those enormous antlers. So no antlers for the females, but during the springtime, of course, the males are going to grow those lovely antlers. And viewers, in case you're wondering how big a moose antler is, I do actually have one here. Let's just bring this up. Yeah. Will that fit in the screen? I might have to move back a little bit. There we are.
Wow.
So this is a small moose antler. This is the one that I can pick up easily. So that's why I brought this one instead. And as you can kind of tell, yeah, it's a little bit large. This is about the same kind of height as my torso is. And every single year, these moose antlers will grow in the spring. And then in the wintertime, they fall off. They don't want to be carrying these around when they're trying to walk through deep, deep snow. Especially if you're being hunted by something like a wolf, you want to be as light as possible. You don't want to be hauling this around all the time. But in the springtime, again, they grow back. And every single year, they grow back a little bit bigger. So the bigger the antler, of course, the older the moose is going to actually be. And that's how we can tell this one's a fairly young one, just based on the size. But if you do find an antler that's kind of just on the ground, you can actually tell that it fell off naturally by looking at the bottom here. So this is what we call the button of an antler. And you can kind of see there's just a little ridge around. This is where the bony plate kind of grows over top of the antler. And that way, that just cuts off the blood flow. And that's why they kind of just fall off naturally. Although they do look to be a little bit itchy. You often will see animals with antlers in the wintertime kind of just shaking their heads as they're standing, maybe scratching up against some trees. You just want those things off their heads. Oh, so uncomfortable.
So if they lose them in the winter, and you're saying if they're trying to outrun predators like wolves and things, yeah. I would have thought that they would have been pretty good at kind of defending themselves. So what do they use them for if it's not for that?
It's mostly to impress the ladies. Yeah, this is something that they'll use to like go, hello, looking for a girlfriend. That's definitely what they like their antlers for. They will also use them to fight other males for the attentions of some lovely lady. So it's more to do with their own, reproduction than it is for fighting off predators. Especially with moose, they do like to kind of hang out in the trees in the wintertime. They're not really a fan of big spaces. And so that antler can get a little bit of a hazard if you're running through trees all the time.
Right. I've heard something as well, and I might be wrong, but something about the shape of them kind of amplifies sounds from around and funnels it into their ear.
Yeah, to some extent. Moose do not have very close by territories. So usually when the males are calling, as we heard earlier. They want to hear females kind of calling back occasionally. So they'll have those nice antlers to help amplify that situation a little bit.
That's awesome. So we've got a couple of newer questions here. One from Kayla, who wants to know how fast moose antlers grow.
Oh, in terms of like the length per year, you know what? I would have to look that up. It's going to change a little bit depending on the individual. Some moose just are really good at growing them faster, and others not going to be as much. But I would say they probably don't grow more than, kind of this long per year. So a few inches. Have to look up the exact one for you though.
As they get older, does it grow faster because they get bigger? Or do they just go longer amounts of time?
I think it just goes longer, but I'd have to check that one out. Usually we don't get the adults, we just get the babies. So no antlers to deal with on that side of things.
Awesome. And just before when we were chatting, you showed me something on that antler that may have been a sign of something else.
Absolutely. So I'll just pop this up closer to the camera here. If you guys can see right along here, it actually looks like there's some chew marks on the ends of the antler. And that is absolutely the case. When antlers do fall off, of course, they're just left on the ground, but lots of other forest animals really enjoy eating the antlers. And that's because antlers are made out of bone. They're full of calcium. So animals like squirrels, mice, even foxes, wolves, coyotes, skunks, will eat the antlers and get those really, really important vitamins. Of course, adult animals in the wild do not drink milk past when they're babies. So they have to get their calcium from other places. So if you do see an antler in the wild, it's always a good idea to actually just leave it where you find it. And that way that the animals will have all the nutrition they need to last them through the winter.
That is awesome. And viewers, if you got pets at home, dogs and things, is that why they, when you're on a walk or something, will maybe come out, start chewing on a horn or a bone or something?
Absolutely. They love getting that calcium. So that's why your dogs will often, really enjoy eating bones. That's the calcium need in their bodies. And that's really excellent for a lot of different things.
Some great facts here. I'm learning a lot. Okay, let's hop over back to, here it is. Our pictures. Okay, so next up. So before we go on, Katrina, are these all animals that you receive into your center?
Absolutely, yeah. So all of the pictures of the baby animals you guys are seeing are actually ones that were taken from our hospital. So these are all patients that we have had or currently have as well.
Okay. Oh, what is this little guy?
Oh my gosh.
So sweet. Wow. So it looks pretty small. Seems to have a lot of hair. I've actually got a sound that I'm going to play because this also surprised me. I did not expect this sound to come from this little thing. So I'm going to play this along with you guys as well to see if it helps. It didn't help me, but let's see.
It's a bit of a unique one.
There is no way that's a real sound.
That's a real sound. Oh my gosh. Yeah. One of the weirdest animal noises. I really love them.
Right on. That is awesome. What a weird little sound there. So we've got some answers coming in here from Silver Raven again, thinks a porcupine. Amanda thinks a monkey. We've got a race car. It does sound like a race car, actually. Maybe it's impersonating something.
Yeah.
Porcupine. I think the viewers have it again.
I love it. Yeah.
Check it out.
We've got a lot of people who are a little bit nervous about these animals, but you do not need to be at all, I promise.
Wow. So that is, I'm guessing, an adult porcupine here.
That is, yeah, absolutely. This is one that we actually had from quite a young age, and we had to keep over the winter time because of when they came in. So they'd been orphaned. Unfortunately, Mom was hit by a car, and we had to look after these guys until he was big enough to go back to the wild.
It looks pretty big, actually. So can you tell us something about maybe some of his adaptations or why it looks like a Spiky bush, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the most famous adaptation for a porcupine is those quills. And those quills are actually a really special type of hair. So they're just a modified hair. It's meant to be really hard, really pokey, and they have tiny little hooks at the end of them so that if an animal does come up a little too close and bites the porcupine, those pokey hooks are going to hook into the animal and actually be pulled out of the porcupine, make the animal biting them very, very uncomfortable, and give the porcupine time to hopefully run away. Unfortunately, porcupines are not the fastest of animals. They only run about 4 kilometers an hour top speed. So they really do rely on those quills to help kind of dissuade animals from even trying to have a little bite, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I see them. I remember as a kid when you'd watch cartoons and things, and they would shoot their spines at predators. Is it something they can do, or is that
not something they can do? No. Unfortunately, I also cannot shoot my hair. They cannot shoot their quills. It just, yeah, you really, in order to get hurt by a porcupine, you have to walk into the porcupine. They are definitely not going to try and chase you, and even if they did, you can walk faster than they can run, so you're going to be okay. Unfortunately, even though I love dogs very, very much, dogs are not the brightest of animals. And so that's often who you see getting porcupine quills in their faces, because they just can't resist the lovely smell of the porcupine.
Oh, so I've got a couple of questions about porcupines here.
Yeah.
Alicia wants to know what their head is made out of. Is it the same as ours? Is it keratin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. So same things as your fingernails and our hair, rhino horns.
Exactly. Keratin is an amazing protein. It is so versatile. They do have hair just as we kind of think of it as well. So they have those longer hairs on the top. They have an under fur on the bottom, and then they've got the quills. So 3 different types of hair on a single animal. So cool.
Wow. That is awesome. I've got another one from, is it Terry? Wants to know if they hibernate. That's sort of something we've spoken about yet. Hibernate.
No, it isn't. But porcupines actually do not hibernate. So you can see them out and about during the winter time. And that's, again, partly why you see them as like a big spiky bush. In the winter, they actually get a lot fluffier even than this. So they can be almost a sphere. They're just very round. They do walk around during the winter time, and their tracks are really easy to spot because they have a nice tail and belly drag mark right in the middle of where their footprints are. So you see their footprints and then the nice big drag mark in the middle from everything.
Wow, that's a good way to see kind of what their tracks are in the snow. Very, I can't think of the word.
Distinctive.
Distinctive, that's the word.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've got another question. Can they climb trees?
Yes, and in fact, that's actually where they're most comfortable. So they love climbing. They've got nice hooked claws to help them with that. And their favorite food to eat is the bark on the thinnest possible branches that they can get to. So they love that tender bark. And actually, we can go into a little bit of a gross out fact for a second. Their poop is mostly wood shavings because of how much bark they will eat.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it could be flammable.
No, I've never tried lighting it on fire. I would encourage you guys not to do that either.
No, probably not.
Let's not. I can't imagine it would smell great.
No. I got another question about what do they eat? What do porcupines eat?
Yeah, so most of their diet is what we call browse. So it's bark on branches and things like that. At the hospital, though, sometimes when they come in, they're not always able to start eating bark right away, especially if they've got some kind of injury with their teeth. Or if they're babies, they're drinking milk. So we have special porcupine formula that we actually have to feed porcupines. And my first day at AIWC, that was something that I actually did. I got to bottle feed a baby porcupine. So that was
things to do. That's
pretty special moment. Yeah. Can't buy porcupine milk at the grocery store, though. It has to, be at a special animal hospital. So.
Yeah. So I got something here actually from our education department. This is a pelt. Let me just there we go. So this is a pelt here. So viewers, feel free to try and guess what this is. It's obviously brown in color. And Katrina, if you want to tell us something about the specific hairs on this pelt.
Yeah, so this is another one of these animals that likes to have layered hairs. So they've got a really, really nice velvety underlayer of their fur. and then some longer, more coarse guard hairs on the top of them. And the hair of this animal is very, very special. Actually, for a long time in this country, this was an extremely valuable fur. So hopefully I haven't totally given it away with that, but
well, we got a few guesses.
excellent.
Melanie says a beaver. Amanda thinks maybe a bear. Silver Raven and Danielle also think beaver. Should we let them know? It is a beaver. You're correct.
You got it.
Woohoo! Well done. So yeah, very distinctive furs. It's kind of shiny on top, these long hairs, and then inside that kind of fuzzy stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, that really velvety underfur just keeps them nice and toasty warm, especially when they're swimming around in fairly cool water as well.
Great adaptation there. So let's talk about, I'm just looking over what I have. I've got a couple of antlers and floor. There we go.
There we are.
This one here, it's pretty long and thin. Maybe that way around. There we go.
That's the one.
There we go. So it's got something that kind of protrudes, it kind of comes around, and then a front-facing one as well. So viewers, if you want to take a guess as to what this may have come from, and then maybe Katrina can tell us a little bit about this. I'll give you a clue. It is on, I think it is on one of the coins.
You got it. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Oh, we've got a guess. And Silver Raven, you are on it today. It is a caribou. It is a caribou antler. So Katrina, why are they, this is kind of distinctive from the other ones. It's got this forward kind of protrusion here.
Very much so. Yeah, so the interesting thing about caribou antlers is that actually both the males and the females have them. But the females have their antlers for upwards of more than 1 year. So they're not losing them nearly as often as the males are. So if you do see a caribou with antlers in the middle of wintertime, it's going to be female. The males will actually still lose them on the same schedule as the moose will.
So does that mean that Rudolph?
I have news for you about all of the reindeer, actually.
Wow, so
they are all females, judging by the time of year. Yeah.
Because they have their antlers during the winter.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Blowing minds today. Excellent. So as I was saying, this is an antler. What is the difference between antlers and horns? Because you hear things of horns as well.
Absolutely, great question. So antlers are things that grow on top of heads and then fall off very naturally. So you're thinking your deer, your elk, your moose, your caribou, they all have antlers that grow and then fall off very naturally. Animals with horns, though, like this bighorn sheep horn that I've got right here, these are things that grow on their heads all year round. So they never fall off. And inside of the horn, you can actually see this is just the shell here, there is a bony core where this keratin sheath, so that's what the horn is made out of. It's also keratin. Keratin is so great. You're growing new ridges on this horn every single year and every single season. So you can actually look at the growth lines on your horn and see how really old that animal is. And of course, the older the animal, the bigger the horn's going to get as well.
Wow.
Yeah,
so
it's really cool.
Alberta might have horns as opposed to antlers.
Yeah, so our bighorn sheep and our goats also have horns here. Yeah.
Very cool. And were those not, I keep calling them buffalo, they're not buffalo, they're bison.
Bison, yes. Also horns.
That got reintroduced. Very cool.
Yes. Yeah, so, into Banff, which is so exciting. And I know they had tons of babies this year, which is it's so thrilling. Really, really excited about that conservation project. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about a little bit more about AIWC and what you guys, have you got any stinky stories? What's the stinkiest animal that you have received?
Animal, I mean, I think, there's no contest on this one. Baby skunks got to be the stinkiest animals of all. Have I been sprayed though? No, I have not, despite the fact that I actually pick these guys up on a fairly regular basis now. And that's because the baby skunks, they really don't have a very strong spray. They certainly can spray by the time they're about 1 month old, but it's not nearly as potent as the adult spray. Now, a skunk also does not want to spray you. They only have a small amount of spray that's stored up in their bodies. And once they are out, they are out. They cannot make any more. It takes them about 2 weeks to refresh their spray supply. So they're not just walking around spraying everywhere. They don't like that at all. They really want to keep it for when they think they're about to be eaten. And so only time at work where that really is a risk is when we have to go and pick the skunks up to weigh them, just to make sure that, everything's going well, they're eating all their food, they're growing properly and things like that. So I'm pretty good at wrestling them with the towel so I don't get sprayed and the towel gets sprayed instead. But yeah, you come home even after not being sprayed and you can tell. A shower is the first thing that has to happen once you get home from that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had a limited supply. That's also pretty interesting. So I think we've got one more animal to show our viewers here.
Oh, yes.
So, and this one might be the last one. It's looks like it's trying to hide here. I think this is a pretty distinctive one. I think our keen eye viewers are going to have a.
Well, you're giving them a bit of a hard one because the features for the species are kind of hidden in this picture. So, yeah, there's two different options it could be. I'm curious to see if people get it.
Okay.
So you got a 50-50 chance here, guys.
Silver Raven says a fawn. Kayla says white-tailed deer. Masha, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Deer. Silver Raven, probably a mule deer. Doe or deer. We've got lots of answers here. Fawn. Alexandra says white-tailed deer. So I think we're settled on a deer.
Definitely a deer fawn. Yeah, you guys got it. We can tell it's a fawn, by the way, so it's a baby, because of those white spots on their back. They do not have those once they get to about, like 3-4 months old. They lose them completely.
So why do the babies have those white spots?
Well, it's actually to do with the other thing you can see in the picture, those leaves. Because just like the jackrabbit babies, these baby fawns will curl up in the grass, usually under trees. And when you see sunlight kind of filtering through the trees on the ground, it gets that kind of almost dappled effect where you can see little spots everywhere. And so these spots help the deer fawn actually blend into the forest floor area.
So it's one of those camouflage adaptations.
Not a camouflage thing. So much camouflage.
Okay, I'm now questioning if I made this correctly then, because we'll see if I was right, because I took a guess as well. Let's see. Is it? Yes.
Good job, you got it. Yeah, it is a white-tailed deer. The big difference between our white-tailed deer and our mule deer at that age is actually their ears. So white-tailed deer have smaller ears than the mule deer do.
Interesting. And
tail is also a good way to look at it. White-tailed deer, as you can probably guess, have a very nice flag-like white tail. Mule deer have a little bit of a black tip on the end, and it's not quite as impressive of a tail. But
I've heard something about the tails, and that's actually how they communicate. Is that right?
Absolutely. Animals will use all sorts of things to communicate. So a lot of animals use their tails to kind of talk to each other. Scent as well, which we have a hard time picking up on. They'll use that to communicate with each other. Noises are not as common, especially for prey animals like a deer, because they don't want to let, predators know where they are. Better to not advertise your presence with a lot of noise.
So, Katrina, we're talking about these animals and camouflaging and hiding, and you mentioned earlier that some mums will actually leave their babies in a particular area. What should people do if they spot maybe an infant or a baby animal out in the wild?
Yeah, well, best thing to do is always to leave it there. Do not touch it. And if you are worried about that animal, you can always give us a call or give another local wildlife rehab center a call, and we can kind of talk you through whether that animal is injured or not. Most of the time, though, if a baby is curled up in the grass, if it's a deer or if it's a rabbit especially, and they're not making any noise, they're just kind of hunkered down, that's totally fine. That's very, very normal for them. Usually their mums won't come back for about 6 hours for deer and up to 12 hours for the jackrabbits. So don't panic if you don't see a mum around. They're very, very happy just being on their own. Now, if you do see a baby who is bleeding or who is crying and making a lot of noise, then that's kind of a sign that something is actually wrong. And we would want to get that baby animal into care as fast as possible. So right now we do actually have a deer fawn at AIWC who had to come in because she had been orphaned. And she was found in Fish Creek Park just crying. So she wasn't able to actually find her mom again. Her mom didn't come back for some reason. And she was very tiny. She still had a part of her umbilical cord attached. So she was only maybe 2 days old when she first came in. You know, so she's doing great now, though. She's actually almost getting weaned off of her milk and is eating lots of branches. She's very excited about that. So.
Oh, you guys are fantastic. Well, looking at the time, it looks like we're just about at the end.
Wow.
So unfortunately, viewers, we have to say goodbye, but thank you very much for joining us. I had a lot of fun. I hope you did as well. And I learned a lot of things. And I think the thing that stuck out of my mind is that Rudolph and the other reindeers are female. So facts all around here today. So thank you very much, Katrina, for joining us today. And yeah, we'll see you soon, guys.
Absolutely. And maybe if I could just say, if you guys are interested in learning more about us, you can find us online. It's just AIWC.ca. And if you'd like to make a donation to help out the animals or want to know what more you can do, check that website out. There's lots of links available to tell you how to help.
That is excellent. And also, Spark fans, we do have another live event tomorrow, all about dinosaurs. So tune in if you want to learn about dinosaurs. Okay, thanks. And I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much,
Bye.
guys.